Today, we're delving into a bizarre murder case where a man confessed to killing his daughter, wife, and sister on Facebook before setting himself on fire. This is a heartbreaking and tragic story for this family. The man was identified as Randy Janzen from British Columbia. His chilling confession was posted on Facebook on May 7, 2015. In it, Randy claimed he had killed his 19-year-old daughter due to her debilitating migraines that had led her to depression. He went on to confess to killing his wife, stating that he could never let her mother hear the news of her daughter's death. And his reason for killing his sister was to prevent her from suffering the shame of his murderous actions. The Janzen family seemed like a happy family, always caring, close-knit, and ready to support each other. But one day, everything changed. A horrific event occurred in their home, so shocking that even their closest friends couldn't believe it. Behind this mystery was a series of events that shattered the family and left everyone around them in utter disbelief. Law enforcement, friends, and neighbors all tried to piece together what could have caused this seemingly perfect family to fall apart and exactly what happened behind closed doors. In the dense forests of British Columbia, among small, quiet towns with brick storefronts and cozy coffee shops, Randy Janzen lived a seemingly unremarkable life. Langley, a small town that many considered a peaceful refuge, had been Randy's home since childhood. For over a decade, he dedicated himself to the demanding routine of processing wood and transporting logs. Although the work was monotonous and exhausting, it gave him a sense of stability and pride each day. Although each day seemed the same, Randy found purpose in the rhythm of his labor and his place in the community. If the sawmill represented stability, music was Randy's escape, a way to express emotions he couldn't always put into words. Music had been a part of his life since childhood, and over time, playing guitar and singing evolved from a hobby into a vital outlet. He frequently performed at a local bar in Langley. It was at that local bar that Randy met Laurel, the woman who would change his life forever. Laurel was older than Randy and worked as a bartender. Their shared passion for music and mutual dreams brought them closer together. Life at the sawmill continued as usual for Randy, but now it was colored by the presence of Laurel. Their bond deepened as they began planning a future together. A few years after their wedding, their daughter Emily was born. Emily had shown remarkable talent in singing, but at the age of 8, she began experiencing debilitating migraines. This led to a decline in her health and eventually tragedy. From a young age, Emily displayed a remarkable talent for singing, captivating her parents with her voice and winning numerous awards and competitions. She was very active, attending vocal lessons with the dream of becoming a singer. Her parents, inspired by her success, did everything they could to support her ambitions. Initially, Randy and Laurel didn't understand what was happening to their daughter. Doctors' visits and numerous medical tests didn't provide clear answers, leaving them worried about her condition. Emily had to leave school and switch to home-based learning because the bright lights and noisy environment of the classroom exacerbated her severe headaches. Her room became a dark sanctuary where she spent most of her remaining time. Randy and Laurel took turns caring for her, doing everything in their power to alleviate her pain and provide comfort. After many medical assessments, doctors finally arrived at a diagnosis: migraines. It was a devastating blow to the entire family. The medication prescribed for Emily only provided minimal relief, reducing her pain somewhat but never stopping it completely. Music, which she had loved deeply and was her greatest source of happiness, was now out of reach. Emily, once a cheerful and energetic girl, became increasingly withdrawn, spending most of her time in silence and darkness. Randy and Laurel desperately searched for ways to help their daughter. They tried countless treatments, consulted numerous experts, and explored alternative therapies, but nothing yielded the results they hoped for. Migraines are often a lifelong condition, and many people have to endure the pain indefinitely. Statistics show that about 53% of people with migraines can drive due to their symptoms, 30% struggle to complete their education, and 34% face challenges in employment. Although these numbers made Emily's condition seem more positive medically, they did not alleviate the pain her parents felt as they watched their daughter's life dwindle. These years were particularly difficult for Randy. Music, which had been his sanctuary, now served as a painful reminder that Emily could no longer engage in the passion that had brought her so much joy. The evenings he spent playing guitar now felt empty without Emily's voice to accompany him, and performing at the local bar where he was once famous no longer brought him happiness. He began spending more time at home, being close to Emily and supporting her as much as possible. But as Emily's pain intensified, Randy and Laurel felt increasingly helpless. Their once active, vibrant, and determined daughter now spent her days confined to her room, avoiding life and noise. Although Randy continued to work, his thoughts were always with Emily, and each day he woke up hoping to find a cure for her. When Emily turned 18, her condition deteriorated significantly. Her migraines became more frequent and severe, sometimes lasting for days at a time. The relentless pain affected her ability to study and maintain friendships. Despite these challenges, Emily refused to give up on her ambitions. She enrolled in the University of British Columbia's arts program, pursuing a path in the fine arts with the dream of one day becoming an opera singer. For Emily, attending university was not just an academic endeavor, but also a chance to regain a sense of normalcy and move closer to the life she had always envisioned. Despite physical exhaustion and constant pain, Emily pushed herself to stay engaged. She took vocal lessons, studied music theory, art history, and literature. She even participated in student events and concerts whenever she could. Despite the challenges she faced, her classmates admired her determination to remain involved in university life, even during difficult times. But behind the scenes, her activities masked a painful struggle. Emily often had to miss classes and catch up on her studies independently. The powerful medications prescribed to manage her migraines left Emily feeling fatigued, drowsy, and weak. Her treatment plan included medications like triptans, anticonvulsants, and antidepressants to alleviate her symptoms. However, these drugs came with significant side effects, such as depression, difficulty concentrating, and a general decline in physical well-being. Over time, Emily began to avoid medication as much as possible to reduce its impact on her body. Emily turned to meditation and breathing exercises, applied cold compresses to her head, and avoided triggers like bright lights, strong odors, and loud noises. Her room became a sanctuary where she could retreat from anything that worsened her pain. During the most unbearable episodes, she spent entire days in the dark, shielded from light and sound, while her parents, Randy and Laurel, took turns caring for her and doing whatever they could to ease her suffering. Even so, Emily tried her best to maintain a sense of normalcy. She kept in touch with her friends, although she couldn't see them as often as she used to. Sometimes, She had to cancel plans at the last minute because of a sudden migraine attack, but her friends never abandoned her. They would visit her at home, spend time with her, and offer support to make sure she didn't feel isolated. Despite the limitations imposed by her condition, Emily refused to give up on the things she cherished. Her determination to return to music and live a full life never wavered, no matter how difficult the journey became. On May 7, 2015, Randy Janzen posted a message on Facebook that shocked everyone. In this post, he confessed to committing unthinkable acts over the previous 10 days. He began by writing about his daughter, Emily, describing her as the best daughter anyone could ever hope for, talented, intelligent, and kind. Emily brought so much joy to their lives, filling their home with laughter and always willing to help others, even when she herself was struggling. But her illness had taken so much from her, forcing her to give up the dreams she had worked so hard to achieve. Emily had suffered from migraines since elementary school. The relentless pain led to deep depression, and days where the pain didn't stop for even a moment became her reality. Randy described how his daughter would watch her classmates living normal lives while she spent her days in the hospital or in her dark, silent room. Despite everything, Emily tried to hold on to hope, dreaming of a better future, but nothing seemed to work. He told friends that Emily was his whole life and that he couldn't imagine living without her. Watching her suffer and being unable to help pushed him to the edge of despair. Friends recalled how Randy opened up to them about his pain, and it was clear how much he was struggling emotionally. One day, Randy made a decision that would change everything. In a Facebook post, he admitted that he had taken a gun and ended Emily's life, explaining that he wanted to free her from the unrelenting pain. He wrote about how he pictured her as an angel floating above the clouds, her long hair flowing in the wind, finally free from her suffering. He didn't stop there. Randy revealed that he had also taken the life of his wife, Laurel, stating that he couldn't bear the thought of her living with the heartbreak of losing their daughter. A few days later, he ended the life of his sister, Shelley, saying he didn't want her to live with the shame of his actions. In the post, Randy explained that Emily had tried everything possible to recover. He described her strength and resilience. But ultimately, the illness had broken her. He shared how powerless he felt, watching her suffer every day, knowing there was nothing he could do. Randy had told friends many times that he would do anything for Emily, and in the end, he believed this was the only way to help her. After Randy published the post, his friends and acquaintances immediately contacted the police. They were horrified by what they read and wanted to ensure the safety of Randy's family. The post left many in disbelief, struggling to process the magnitude of what had happened. Law enforcement quickly responded after receiving multiple calls, including one from Brian Jones, a close friend of Randy's. Officers were dispatched to Randy's home to investigate. Brian Jones, one of Randy's closest friends, felt a great sense of fear and confusion when he read the Facebook post. At first, he hoped it was a mistake or some kind of cruel joke, but when he saw the signature at the end, a nickname Randy had used since their school days, he realized his friend had written those words. The gravity of the situation made Brian act immediately. He left work early and headed towards Shelley's house, trying to reach Randy on the phone. On the way, each unanswered call deepened his concern. When Brian arrived at Shelley's house, he noticed a stack of undelivered newspapers on the porch. This struck him as strange because Shelley was known to be reliable and never neglect her responsibilities. The yard was eerily quiet, with no signs of activity. Brian knocked on the door several times, but there was no answer. Everything about the scene felt unsettling and ominous. He knew something was wrong and decided to call the police. A patrol unit had already been dispatched to check on the situation. At the end of his Facebook post, Randy had written that his family was now in a better place, free from pain. He expressed regret for his actions, took full responsibility, and apologized to anyone he had hurt. The post concluded with the haunting words, "Rest in peace, my little family." Reading this, Brian felt a wave of shock and disbelief. He had always known Randy as a kind and caring person, someone who loved his family deeply. The idea that his friend was capable of such an act, or even owned a firearm, was incomprehensible to him. He recalled how Randy always spoke about his family with love and devotion, and he struggled to understand how things could have taken such a dark turn. When the police arrived, they tried to contact Randy Janzen, who was inside the house. Officers spotted him through a second-floor window, holding a firearm. They used loudspeakers and tried calling him on the phone, but Randy did not respond. The officers were acutely aware of how tense the situation was and knew they had to proceed carefully to avoid escalating it further. The house was surrounded and negotiators began their efforts, but Randy showed no signs of surrendering or willingness to communicate. After several hours, the standoff escalated into something far more dangerous. Randy set the house on fire and officers noticed smoke billowing from the upper floor. Attempts to enter the home were unsuccessful. The flames spread too quickly, cutting off access. Through the windows, officers spotted a body on the first floor, wrapped in a sheet, but they were unable to reach it for identification. Within minutes, fire consumed the entire house, forcing the officers to retreat. The fire was so intense that access to the interior remained unsafe for several days, even after the blaze was extinguished. It wasn't until May 10, 3 days after the fire, that investigators could enter the charred remains of the house to begin their examination. Inside the burned-out home, investigators found 3 bodies. 19-year-old Emily was discovered in her bedroom, her body wrapped in a bedsheet. 50-year-old Laurel was found in the kitchen, also covered in a blanket. Investigators determined that both had suffered 2 gunshot wounds to the head, inflicted approximately 10 days before Randy wrote his Facebook post. Randy's own body was found on the second floor, having taken his own life with a gun, before setting the house on fire. Based on the position of the body and the remnants of the weapon, it was clear that Randy was in a state of deep emotional distress when he made the decision to end his life. When police arrived at the home of Shelley, Randy's sister, they found her body in the living room. Shelley had also been shot twice in the head and her body was covered in a blanket. Investigators concluded that she had died 2 days before being discovered, with no signs of a struggle at the scene, suggesting that Randy had attacked her unexpectedly. Emily's condition had deteriorated significantly over the past year. Doctors had resorted to administering morphine to alleviate her excruciating pain. These injections were a last resort, and neighbors often saw her parents helping her into the house after hospital visits. Emily had become so frail that she required assistance to walk. These moments were heartbreaking for everyone who knew the family. Randy Janzen, Emily's father, had always tried his best to care for his family, despite the challenges. A year before the tragic events, he had sought help from his family doctor due to persistent insomnia and excessive stress. He confided in his doctor about how difficult it was to witness his daughter's suffering. The doctor suggested sedatives and advised Randy to try to get more rest, but Randy declined the medication, believing it wouldn't address the real problem. Brian Jones, a close friend of Randy's, recalled that Randy had never expressed any intention of self-harm or a desire to harm others. He described Randy as a calm, hard-working man who was always willing to help. Randy prioritized his family above all else, and no one could imagine him being capable of such actions. However, Brian noted that Randy had reached his breaking point. He couldn't bear to watch his daughter suffer and ultimately made a devastating decision. Many neighbors who had known Randy since childhood found the events impossible to reconcile with the man they remembered. They described him as a kind and gentle person, someone who had never shown signs of aggression or cruelty to them. His actions seemed born out of desperation and an inability to cope with the pain and anguish surrounding his family. One neighbor recalled Randy saying that if his daughter ever left this world, he wouldn't have a reason to live. Despite those words, Randy lived in the house with the bodies of his wife and daughter for 10 days before taking his own life. Emily's final tweet, posted 4 days before the tragedy, read, "I complain about the pain, but at least I'm here to feel it. I thank God for the chance to live." The post reflected her desire to hold on to life despite the immense suffering she endured. Her social media messages often conveyed her fight to stay positive in the face of her illness. She tried to maintain hope even when her circumstances seemed bleak. Emily was remembered as a kind and compassionate young woman who worked to stay connected with the world around her. She had a passion for music and sang in the local church when her health allowed it. Laurel, Emily's mother, did everything she could to support her daughter. In one Twitter post, she wrote, "Emily is back in the hospital, praying God can help her. I feel so helpless." These words reflected the pain and despair she felt as she watched her daughter suffer. Laurel was emotionally exhausted, but refused to give up, constantly searching for ways to alleviate Emily's condition. Shelley, Randy's sister, was also unaware of the impending tragedy. No one in the family imagined that their fate would be decided in such a devastating manner. Over the past year, Randy often confided in friends about the overwhelming burden and stress caused by Emily's illness. No one could have predicted that Randy would one day reach such a fragile emotional state that he would decide to take the lives of his family. As mentioned earlier, Emily maintained a Twitter account where she shared her thoughts. Her posts revealed that she wasn't giving up. Just before the tragedy, she wrote, "For the first time in 2 years, I've had 12 hours without pain. I'm so tired of being in pain, but I need to keep going." Her determination to fight, despite the immense challenges, was evident in her words. However, Randy couldn't cope with the emotional burden anymore. Laurel was also deeply affected by watching her daughter's health decline. Her Twitter posts reflected her pain. Despite their despair, the family tried to support each other, but the situation continued to deteriorate, and none of them could have foreseen what was to come. Now that the events have come to light, it's clear that desperation, hidden struggles, and deep feelings of hopelessness led to a tragedy that no one could have imagined. The story of the Janzen family is a stark reminder that even behind seemingly solid walls, unimaginable pain can simmer beneath the surface, sometimes erupting in ways no one could predict.